channeling, pure conduit, download, energy transmission. These may be confused together, and the reason is because they often come in very similar circumstances. So for example, if somebody is channeling light language, they may also do a transmission. And oftentimes when we speak from the source, when we have our channel completely opened, that is when we tend to also give off transmissions in our speech. And sometimes it does happen when I create a video like this that I give transmissions as well. So what is it? Well, basically it means that the energy is not only, coming to us and through us, but it's also being sent out to the receiving end. How my higher self explained this to me, and not as a separate being, but as a part of my guidance, that's another topic for another time. But I don't think of my higher self as, as a separate being. Like I don't think of the source as a separate being either. But anyway, the way that I had this unfold within me was that it's almost like, you have a tree. From that tree you can take a piece of fruit and you can give it to somebody, and they will either eat it and plant the seeds, or they will just eat it. Planting the seeds, of course, supports them in growing their own trees and doing their own sort of piece of the puzzle, whatever that is. So in that way, energy transmission is not this draining act. Energy transmission it's almost like it is purely from the source and it's just coming through. And it is that plugging into that source field. It is not the same thing as, for example, doing the type of energy work in the physical human energy fields, or maybe even like non-physical human energy fields. That can be a lot more energy consuming, especially if we only do work with our human life force. But I do find that with energy transmissions we do tap into that infinite source frequency, and so therefore whenever we are then transmitting it, it is not taking anything away from us. And so that's kind of the difference, because whenever people channel, while they may indeed be allowing a divine being into their vessel or to come through, because sometimes they don't necessarily have the being in them, and I personally don't really do channeling that way either. I kind of just allow myself to receive the information. So whenever that happens, this is when, the messages are coming through, but they're not always allowed to be transmitted to the person receiving. And so unless we do that with our intention, then it isn't necessarily going to happen. The other things, so like something like a download. A download can happen when we kind of just receive a piece of intel. So maybe we're not intending to channel information, or we're not, usually these come very randomly, just like drops into your consciousness. And so that's kind of the difference, because channeling takes a lot more intention. It takes, safe channeling takes a lot of intention, a lot of sacred space. But I feel like downloads, although they are also divine intel dropping in, they tend to come a lot more randomly. But what does it mean then to be a pure conduit? Isn't that the same as channeling? Not necessarily. I find that pure conduits, we can create those in our spaces. So for example, here's a candle behind me in my Zen garden that is a pure conduit of light. And usually I do also open myself up as a pure conduit of light, so that I may present the most truthful and accurate information for you. And so therefore, difference between conduit and channel is that, channel again, it implies that you are doing it temporarily. And that is for that one time only, that is coming with only one intention. And yes, being a pure conduit helps in channeling, of course. What a pure conduit is, it means that you're a sort of a light holder and doing that in a way that is pure out of any distortions. And yeah, it's like it's just like holding it. So it also isn't always transmitting it directly. It's just holding it. And it can also be like, it could be that I create a pure conduit just around this camera so that everyone who watches this video will be in a pure conduit of light, just present there, hanging out in some nice little light. Transmissions, yeah, they tend to also have a very specific intention. So I might, like for example, when I did my energy work transmission, that is when, yes, I did do a transmission as well, and like I said, I don't lose energy from that, it just keeps on living there. It is something that I had a specific intention for purification and cord cutting. And I also have some transmissions on my Alvius Telescope Starseed Tarot Reading playlist. So you can check that out just to kind of get an idea on what a transmission is. So the difference really between all of these is that, again, channeling usually has to do with specific intentions, specific beings. Pure conduit is just pure source consciousness, really, and just holding space for that pure light. And channeling is usually messaging, so there's a messenger thing element there. That transmission, it can be, yeah, really any energy that is transmitted directly through either its source. So we can also transmit like light language from different star beings, and we can transmit other energetic. It doesn't have to be source, it doesn't have to be, yeah, it can really be any type of energy that can be transmitted through an energy transmission. And so light language transmissions are also that, and they are also channeled usually. So there are overlaps here, but there is also a difference, because channeling isn't always transmission, and yeah, transmission is also not always channeling. It's not always this thing where you are inviting a being into your body necessarily, because sometimes that does happen with, you know, channelings. But we can also, you know, just invite certain energies and certain things that maybe those beings are transmitting to us. So that's kind of the difference with all of these. And I hope that makes a little bit more sense and helps clarify any misconceptions about this topic. So stay tuned for my next video. Stay inspired.